Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining. This is actually the fourth webinar of the series. Want to thank you for joining. Uh, if you'd like to put your name and where you're joining us from in the chat box. As people continue to join, we'll give folks a minute, maybe a little less, and talk about uh, interpretation, and then get started. So good afternoon. I just want to take a moment to say that we are offering simultaneous interpretation, and I do want to introduce Andrea, who is joining us. Over to you, Andrea.
Thank you, Erin. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Andrea. I'm here with the Community Language Cooperative. Today, we're going to practice language justice, and we're going to have simultaneous interpretation in English and in Spanish so that everybody can hear in the language of their heart. Once we turn on the interpretation, you're going to see a globe that is going to come up at the bottom of your screen. You can see it right now on this slide. You're going to click there and you're going to select your preferred language. If you don't see the globe, go to the three little dots or where it says more for options in Zoom and select your preferred language. If you're not fully bilingual in English and in Spanish, please choose a language so that you can fully participate in this meeting. I want to remind everybody that Spanish is 20 to 25% longer than English, so please speak at a conversational pace so that I'm able to interpret everything accurately. Hola a todos, soy Andrea con la Community Language Cooperative. Hoy vamos a estar practicando la justicia del lenguaje y vamos a tener interpretación simultánea en inglés y en español para que podamos comunicarnos en el idioma de nuestro corazón. Una vez que aprendamos la interpretación, ustedes van a ver un globo que va a aparecer en la parte inferior de su pantalla, como lo ven ahora en la diapositiva, y ahí encontrarán la función de interpretación. Si no ven el globo, vayan a los tres punticos donde dice más y ahí podrán seleccionar su idioma. Por favor, recuerden hablar un paso conversacional cuando sea su turno de hablar, si es que hay la oportunidad. And thank you, host. We can start interpretation now.
Gracias. I love seeing where everybody is from in the chat box. Thank you for joining us. This is the fourth session that we've had, really focusing on what's happening in Wisconsin. The first was an overview. The second one was really focusing on our parents and caregivers and involvement and engagement of our parents and caregivers. The third was on early educators, and now the fourth is on advocacy efforts. More specifically, what tools are needed to drive equitable policy and systems change? So we are excited to have this conversation with you all. I do want to just mention that we would love to have this interactive, and we do have a lot prepared for you today. And so if you have a question, please feel free to add it in the chat box. I will say we are going to hold questions until the end. If there is time, we will answer it. If there is not time, please, we can leave your email address or contact us, and we'll share our information at the end. So once again, thank you for joining us today. So glad to have you here. And I just want to take a quick moment to introduce the team who is with you today. We have Aliyah, Dahi, Ruth, Toshiba, and Bianca. The team is going to be sharing a lot of information with you. We will also drop links to the resources that we are sharing in the chat box as well. So just be aware that we're going to consistently drop these links throughout the entire presentation, and just want to encourage you to reach out afterwards for questions, to share ideas, and we'll talk more about that at the end as well. Once again, thanks for joining, and I'm going to turn it over to Aliyah.
Thank you so much, Erin, and welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us today. As you see, our session is titled Advocacy Efforts, What Tools Are Needed? So we will be sharing strategies today rooted in community, data, and action, including key tools that have helped us drive meaningful change in Wisconsin. We don't have enough time to share everything, so we really encourage you to reach out to learn more. We'll be sharing our email addresses at the end, or if you prefer us to reach out to you, please drop your email address into the chat. Next slide. So today, my name is Aaliyah Stevenson. I'm the Deputy Director for Kids Forward. Kids Forward is a statewide anti-racist policy center that inspires action and advocates for children and families of color and those furthest from opportunity in Wisconsin. Today, I am joined by my colleague, Dahi Wolf, who is a senior policy analyst. And although Amanda wasn't able to join us today, we will be hearing from her in a short video. Together, our team, we bring a bunch of experience in policy research, advocacy, community engagement, and strategies. Next slide. So again, with our short time today, we aim to introduce some of the tools for driving equitable policy change, share data-driven, community-informed advocacy strategies, explore briefly how to tell powerful stories that influence policy, and throughout the presentation, we'll be learning from real examples, including our successes and our lessons learned. Next slide. One of our key or foundational resources that we build all our work from and the tools that we're sharing today is our playbook. Our playbook is a blueprint for building and leveraging power. It includes 7 actionable strategies to advance equity, justice, and systemic change. This isn't just theory. It's a practical guide grounded with real examples from Kids Forward successes. Next slide. What you'll find in the playbook is it's organized around 3 interconnected pillars of power inspired by the Grassroots Power Project, 3 Faces of Power. The power building strategies focus on building narrative power, people and resource power, and creating infrastructure power. These strategies include educating stakeholders, organizing for shared impact, persuading power brokers, conducting policy research and analysis, etc. And each strategy has specific tactics that you may employ. Next slide. When we talk about equitable policy advocacy, just to have a shared understanding, we're talking about more than just laws and budgets. We're talking about centering the voices of those most impacted by decisions, especially when those decisions have historically perpetuated racial disparities. Policy advocacy happens at all levels: school boards, city councils, state legislatures, and it's about improving policies so they truly work for every child and family. Next slide. To be effective in advocacy, we need to understand how policy works. This is why we created our Standing Up for Racial Justice, a starter guide on policy and advocacy in Wisconsin. This is aligned with our Educate Stakeholders for Change strategy that we referenced in the previous slide in our playbook. This tool was created specifically for community members and organizations to better understand policy and how they can get involved. It walks through the history of policy and race, the Wisconsin government, including the legislative and budget processes, and explains multiple ways to get involved. The toolkit includes practical steps like writing your legislator, using social media, and addressing barriers to voting. And we'll be popping a link in the chat for that. Next video. Now we'll hear a little bit about this guide from our very own Amanda Martinez, Senior Policy Analyst and the author of the policy guide.
Hello everyone, my name is Amanda Martinez, and here at Kids Forward, we believe that all children and families in Wisconsin deserve the chance to thrive, regardless of race, immigration status, or income. However, over the past few decades, decision makers in our state have passed policies that only benefit the privileged few. And to continue keeping that power, they have also made it harder for everyone to participate in our democracy. Now, more than ever, it is important that you and I, as a community, remain engaged in fighting against these systems that perpetuate racial injustice. To help, here at Kids Forward, we developed a toolkit called Standing Up for Racial Justice, a starter guide on policy and advocacy in Wisconsin. I am proud of our toolkit because it makes information about policy and advocacy more accessible to diverse communities in Wisconsin. As a child of immigrant parents, it was always a challenge finding information available in Spanish in order to help my parents better understand in their native language. My favorite part about this toolkit is that it is available in English, Spanish, and Hmong, and I hope that it inspires more communities in Wisconsin, including immigrant communities, to become involved in policy and advocacy and the fight for racial justice.
Now I'll pass to my colleague, Dahi
Hello.
Martinez, or Dahi Wolf.
Thank you, Aaliyah, and thank you, Amanda. We really wish she could have been here, but we had to rearrange the whole schedule of this series, and so you got to experience Amanda virtually, and so that's really wonderful. All right, so I'm going to talk about some more of the tools and the the power of advocacy. And the first one I'd really like to talk about, which I think a lot of us really find compelling, is storytelling. Storytelling for advocacy. So storytelling is it's a critical part of one of our strategies, advocating for collective liberation, which is one of our power building strategies. Stories connect with people on a deeper level. They show the human side of policy, and they help others imagine what's possible. So some of the power of stories comes from illustrating impact. Stories can effectively illustrate the real world effects of policies, whether good or bad, and this can motivate action and support. Storytelling can encourage action. Stories can inspire individuals to take action, whether it's coalition building, voting, or lobbying legislators for change, and also influencing decision makers. Policymakers often respond to narratives that reflect their values and priorities. Compelling stories can influence their perspectives and their decisions. And the last part is just kind of thematic, is that stories resonate more deeply than data alone. Next slide, please. So as an example of a recent, we're going to give you a couple examples or case studies of our recent advocacy efforts in Wisconsin. And the first one we're going to talk a little bit about is the Dad's Care for Childcare, which was back in June. So using storytelling and other techniques. So on June 11th, more than 60 dads and their allies came to the Wisconsin State Capitol demanding investments in childcare. Their voices were amplified through social media, and this is a powerful example of storytelling and advocacy in action. Since we've got a lot of this presentation, we're not going to play the video that goes with this, but I know that you'll find it dropped in the chat and you'll be able to watch it on your own and hear some of those voices. So that would be great if you would do that at some point. So next slide. So of course, it's not storytelling alone. It's not policy recommendations alone. It's the data. And we've always been known at Kids Forward as a resource for folks all across Wisconsin in terms of having solid and reliable and meaningful data, often disaggregated by race. And we have a lot of great partners across the country that enable us to do this work and to find this data. And we just want to mention briefly about 4 of them. And also I want to say that alongside storytelling, data plays an important role in policy advocacy, and it's in alignment with another of our strategies, which is policy and research power building strategy. So the 4 I'm going to mention real quick here are the United States Census, Learn About America's People, Places, and Economy, Kids Count, which has been a partner with us for, decades now, which is statistics on children, youth, and families disaggregated by state. And then another great partner, the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities. They conduct research and data analysis both nationally and in each state. And then, of course, in Wisconsin, we have our Department of Children and Families, and we're really lucky that state agencies often are able to share resources and data with us that we're able to, to use effectively. So, all right, next slide, please. All right, I said we'd do another case study, and this is another recent one. I think this happened back at the beginning of May. So what happened is that we partnered with Voces de la Frontera, and we wanted to advance the campaign for driver's licenses for all, to restore driver's licenses for all Wisconsinites, including immigrant parents. When we say restore, this was a former policy in our state that unfortunately had changed, and we are advocating for many reasons to bring it back. So how does data incorporated in this make it more powerful? So it's a powerful example of using data. Together, we advocate to restore driver's licenses for all. By combining lived experience with data, we were able to tell a much fuller story and to shift the harmful narratives about immigrant communities. So basically, this was from Amanda. There exists a narrative that says immigrants take jobs away and cause harm to the community. Kids Forward has the numbers on how to, in fact, immigrants support the state. Kids Forward allows us to interrupt misinformation spread through the media and social media with facts. Numbers have a direct impact. Next slide, please. All right, so what are some of the lessons learned that we want to share? We picked 4 of them for takeaways that we'd love for you to, to glean from what we said, and then to maybe follow up with TA requests, or for looking at the resources, whether they be the data or the storytelling or the other things, the videos. So I'm going to just summarize these 4 lessons, and then that'll be our takeaways. So the first one is, and this is, I'd say, the most important: voices of marginalized communities must be centered. Communities most impacted by structural racism have the knowledge, the power, and the capacity to lead and to drive change. Fundraising is essential for compensating lived expertise and the sustainability of advocacy work. We have a policy at Kids Forward that we never engage community members and ask them to, do an interview or share a story or do a webinar without compensation, just like the experts that they are. The next one is that a feedback loop is required. How are you ensuring that community members remain engaged throughout the process? And then the last one, building power is the work. I'm just going to say that one again. Building power is the work. And of course, that just continues and continues. Communities most impacted by structural racism have the knowledge, the power, and the capacity to lead political and policy change. Next slide, please. All right, so we are very fortunate through funding from the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation to be able to provide technical assistance to other organizations, states, nonprofits, anybody that's interested in using these tools and using that power of community and storytelling and data to really have some successful advocacy. So I'm just going to leave you with this. If you take one thing away today, let it be this: policy change is possible when communities most impacted lead the way and stories candid, and when we commit to long-term work of building power. We're here to support you with technical assistance, data, and strategies to make it happen. We offer technical assistance to organizations and coalitions who are interested in working to advance equity through policy. And there is Amanda's email there to follow up, and I'm sure we'll be able to share that otherwise. And then Aaliyah just put into the chat if you want to share your email there. We'd love to hear from you. So that's it from Kids Forward today. I'm so glad that you folks are here attending this webinar, and I hope that that you learned something today and that you will think about availing yourself of some of these resources. And I'm very pleased to be able to turn it over to Ruth Schmidt, the Executive Director of the Wisconsin Early Child Association, to continue the conversation about advocacy efforts and driving impact through community, data, and action. So thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Dahi. You can go to the next slide, please. So as Dahi indicated, I'm Ruth Schmidt. I am the Executive Director at Wisconsin Early Childhood Association, or WECA as we call it. We are the state affiliate of the National Association for the Education of Young Children, or NAEYC. And we have struggled for a long time with being sure that we can find best ways to communicate policy and to communicate advocacy needs in really accessible ways to people who work in the field of early care and education, to parents, to business leaders, but also to our legislators so that they can have a level set on what is going on in childcare in the world of Wisconsin. So in 2025, we launched the Wisconsin Early Childhood Association Center for Policy, Research, and Engagement. The purpose of this group really is it's staffed by 5 of our colleagues, and it is about ensuring that we have data and policy documents to share that solidify positions based on a meta-analysis of what research from both in Wisconsin and across our nation is saying about trends in early care and education. This has helped us to be able to create documents for legislators to use during our most recent budget session in the state. It's allowed us to produce district data, snapshots. We've done community conversations that we've hosted across the state, and a variety of other resources and advocacy efforts across Wisconsin. Next slide, please. One of the things that is done through our center, and I would encourage all of you to take a look at these, and you can go to the Wisconsin Early Childhood website to also find more links to what happens in the center. We do significant policy briefs and policy response briefs that take, again, the information that we've learned from deep studies, put them into synthesized kind of bites of information that people can take and can quickly understand. We link them to stories of what is happening in the field of early care and education. And this is basically to do, again, as I mentioned, a level set so that when people talk about what is happening with the early childhood workforce in Wisconsin and with young children and families in Wisconsin, they have access to this type of data. This type of data also, you'll be hearing from Dr. Toshiba Adams and Bianca Hill in just a minute, is also information that has been provided in depth to our Advancing Equity Steering Committee in Wisconsin to help them informing positions on policies and to take advocacy action. Next. This is just a sample of the kind of data worksheets that we have given out to all legislators in the state of Wisconsin. It looks at both affordability of care in their districts with an affordability calculator developed by Committee for Economic Development. It looks at closure rates across our state, where you can see that we have had closures as high as 60 to 80% in some of our counties over the last decade. It also talks about the need and the demand for care and the number of teachers that we are lacking in this workforce to provide adequate care to the children and families that need it. These were incredibly well received. These were documents that allowed legislators to come into conversations together where they could talk in real terms about what is happening in their districts and across the entire state of Wisconsin. Next, please. One of the other things that we've done through the center is a series of community conversations and advocacy trainings. We have probably done more than a dozen community conversations across the state of Wisconsin. These are attended by community members. So we'll have local elected officials, we will have parents, we will have general electorate at these events, we will have early childhood care providers, school district, hospitals, from any industry come to these conversations. And they've been incredibly meaningful in giving a depth of understanding in the community, but also to help inform our policy work. The advocacy training that we do is also something that we've done in depth with members of the Advancing Equity in the Early Childhood Workforce in Wisconsin. And you can go to the next slide, please. In 2025, we helped to plan and carry off the largest in-state advocacy day with over 350 individuals representing over 90% of our legislative districts in the state of Wisconsin. We did both a lot of advocacy training in the morning. It culminated with an incredible rally at lunchtime, and then we went into the Capitol and had meetings in legislative offices from one end of the state to the other. It was incredibly powerful day. It had incredible media coverage. And I want to close my section with just saying that the Advancing Equity Steering Committee was absolutely critical in helping to lead, bring energy to, inform how this day was pulled off. And we are incredibly grateful for the work that they did with us in this event. Next slide. And here you just see, you're going to hear from Bianca Hill in just a minute. She is in the upper photo and is introducing Senator LaTanya Johnson, who was one of the keynote speakers at our day. And then you see a picture with members of the Advancing Equity Steering Committee that were leading the rally that we had outside the Capitol. And this ends my part of the presentation. Thank you.
Today's event is part of a national movement to raise awareness about the need for more funding into early childhood education. And I'm told that this is the first time organizers have brought this event here to Milwaukee. A recent study by Forward Analytics showed that in 2021, the average cost of infant child care in Wisconsin was roughly $13,572 per year. Care.com says families spend nearly a quarter of their income on child care. And the cost doesn't only affect parents.
The fear is that we're going to have to close our doors. So if we don't have the money to run an effective program, then we have to close our doors.
Kelly Melton, with Providers Taking Action, owns Itsy Bitsy Scholars. She says the rising cost of child care adds up when you factor in the cost of food, curriculum, supplies, and other operating costs like insurance and employee wages. Those wages also a concern, with the average hourly rate in Wisconsin just more than $13 per hour for these educators. Today's group shared a list of demands for legislators and policymakers too, demanding an equitable child care system, thriving wages for providers, and care that is affordable to all families.
I am the founder and brand ambassador for Ban the D Word. I'll come right here, give a spin. Okay, you see that? That is my brand. That is Ban the D Word is daycare. We don't use that word. Right? Who are we? We can name a few things. We're child care providers, we're early care professionals, we're everything except daycare workers, babysitters, whatever else they call us. We are not those. We are professionals, all right? Yes. That is a part of our issue. We have to recognize it ourselves so that others recognize us as professionals. Then we won't have to fight for money. They will know that they owe us those funds because we are professionals. I urge you all today to continue to share your stories. There is no rules to this thing. You are walking in this. You are doing the work. Share your story. Do not stop sharing your story. We need folks, we need the state to invest $480 million into this biannual budget for early child care.
I just want to see us in the state of Wisconsin make some advances in this field.
I would just like to state that childcare has no state investment. Like, we get $0 from the state. It's like we're always begging for money to come into childcare, and God bless Governor Evers for the support that he did put into place. Very, very grateful for that. But like Ema said, that's going away. So when that goes away, programs go away. We cannot afford for programs to go away. We know in order to support the public school sectors, they have to have a great foundation in early care. That is not going to happen if we do not get a state investment. If everybody can say it with me, childcare needs a state investment.
Good afternoon, everyone. I would like to start by welcoming you to today's webinar and thanking you for taking time out of your busy schedule to be with us today. My name is Toshiba Adams. I currently serve as a faculty member, professor at Milwaukee Area Technical College, as well as University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee, teaching in the areas of child development and educational policy. I'm also the founder of Sankofa Consulting and Training, which is a nonprofit organization that works to support the early education workforce through research and professional development. So what you just witnessed was a video of early educators in Wisconsin. So for the last couple years, alongside the leadership team at WICA, I've been privileged with the opportunity to design and implement a qualitative research study that centers their experiences, the experiences of Black and Brown early educators in Wisconsin. And so in that video clip, that very powerful video clip, those were some of the Advancing Equity Steering Committee members who also served as research participants. And that was just a culmination of some of the advocacy activities that they have been leading and ushering in the state of Wisconsin. You can see their level of professionalism, you can see their passion, and all of that enveloped into one. So I've been so proud and so privileged to work alongside of these early educators, pushing forward this work in the area or arena of advocacy in Wisconsin. Next slide. So I just wanted to start with a short discussion and provide a historical purview or analysis of how we got to where we are today as it relates to the field of early care and education, and not just nationally, but I'm going to hone in and kind of bring you into the landscape of Wisconsin with this narrative. So some of the problems that we experience in the field of early care and education can be aligned to the fact that this field of caretaking and early education is also conceived or perceived rather as women's work. And so we can see this illustrated throughout history with the evolution of slavery, chattel slavery, as well as these issues of colonialization, where African women were forced into these unpaid positions to care for white families, particularly to care for their children, while they were also forced to negate the needs of their own children and families. So they were spending their days taking care of other people's children while no one was really taking care of their families. We also see through this element of forced assimilation, where Hmong, Native American, and Hispanic women were basically assimilated and socialized under these systems of Eurocentrism, where they were primed or socialized predominantly as caregivers and domestic workers within the United States of America, and really across the globe. It was just not in the US. Meanwhile, what we see in the first half of the century is white women being more privileged to serve as homemakers in their own home. And you might say, well, it's not a privilege to be a homemaker, but it really was during that era to be able to stay home and take care of your children, while at the same time, some of these white women were also able to enter into the workforce. However, I just want to make clear that while they were entering into the workforce, they were not entering like their Black and brown peers as domestic workers. They were assuming higher paid positions in that career hierarchy. But the problem was that they were not earning the same type of compensation as men. So what we see is the evolution of the feminist movement, where white women were demanding that systems pay attention to their socioeconomic situations and inequities. And so we saw the feminist movement come to pass. However, the problem with that initial feminist movement was that while it illuminated the issues that are related to gender and gender inequalities, it did not illuminate issues related to race and racism. And that's partly because even though white women were marginalized by their gender status, they were still privileged by their whiteness. Next slide, please. So in response to that, we see what came to pass as the Black or the brown feminist movement. This was typically like around the civil rights movement, kind of the second half of the 20th century, where Black and brown women were coming together saying, look, we need for policies to be made and designed that's going to center our inequalities at the intersection of our different identities of being a Black and brown woman, as well as yes, as being Black and a woman in this system. So while the white feminist movement just kind of perpetuated issues of genderism, what Black and brown women were trying to say is that this labor force is not only gendered, but it's also racialized. And so they were fighting for equality in those moments. Unfortunately, with all of the fights that they did, they still ended up being predominantly socialized or accepting workplace issues or workplace positionalities as domestic workers, caregivers, where they were receiving very low wages. And I also want to just make clear that even though the Black and brown feminist movement kind of gained traction during the civil rights movement, even in the 1800s, Black women were fighting for equality through people like Sojourner Truth, Ida B. Wells, and Anna Cooper Julia. So this was where they just really gained a little bit more traction in that. But again, they were still in these fields where they served as domestic workers, caregivers, earning low levels of compensation. And so that's kind of like the history to kind of demonstrate, well, where we are now. So typically, if we want to understand where we are in social systems, sometimes it's just best to go back and do a purview of the history, because it makes it a little bit more understandable. So when we look at the contemporary ECE landscape, it still is a field where white women are privileged. They have better access to educational structures that create social mobility for them in ways that it does not for Black and brown women. Even to this day, Black and brown women are still disproportionately marginalized within lower paid positions within the field of early care and education. And so I know people want us to believe in the fact that, hey, we've made progress. And yes, we have made progress, but unfortunately, we have not made enough progress to where things are equal across the board based on individuals' race, gender, and class status. Next slide. So I wanted to give that historical context so that we can kind of understand what we see right now in the state of Wisconsin. Similar to national data in Wisconsin, our early education workforce is predominantly female. If we look at the city of Milwaukee, which is our urban district in the state of Wisconsin, due to policies and laws like racial redlining and racialized covenants, Black and brown women are centralized within the city of Milwaukee. That's where they typically work. And in those areas, they're providing services to children and families who are also Black and brown and who also experience issues of disenfranchisement based on the historical policies and laws that have been in place in the state of Wisconsin. If we look at our rural areas, you see that individuals there who serve as early educators are also isolated from professional development opportunities, other resources, and high quality, culturally responsive early education programming. Regardless to where early educators live in Wisconsin, they are all marginalized by low wage systems, inadequate benefits, or no benefits at all, and also working under stressful, very laborious work environments. But again, if we look through the lens of intersectionality, even in Wisconsin, we see that Black and brown women are disproportionately marginalized in spaces and in positions where they suffer a wage penalty. So again, what we see in Wisconsin is similar to what we saw at the beginning of my history lesson, so to speak, as it relates to white women and Black and brown women in the field. And so when we look at this evidence, when we look at the statistics, it reminds us of how important advocacy is, because it reminds us of how much the system has failed people. Again, across the board, people have been failed in this profession. But again, some people have been privileged while others have been severely oppressed, and it's typically Black and brown individuals. So this is why advocacy work is so very important in this field of early care and education. Next slide, please. So I just want to just pause briefly here because I know I've been talking a lot about Black and brown women, but the low wages that I was just speaking to as it relates to this field is the reason why, or one of the reasons why men typically don't stay around in this field. And for men to be in this field is important because young children need to see themselves represented in teachers. People who serve in those roles, young children need to understand that early education and teaching is a viable career pathway for them. But if they don't see diversity in the workforce, then they may assume that it's not a place for them. So based on the research or findings from the qualitative research that I was just speaking about, I was only able to connect with 5 men out of 45 participants, and 2 of those men were talking about how they had to leave the field because of the low wages, even though they enjoyed the work that they did, but they had to take care of their families, and this was not a career choice or a pathway that would allow them to do that sufficiently. One Black male talked about how he was suffering depression while working in the field based on the low wages and based on the fact that he was not receiving the type of institutional support that he needed to continue working in those classroom environments. So I also wanted to just highlight how this field is also marginalizing to children because it's not as diverse as it should be. Next slide, please. So as I kind of worked through these systems and thinking about advocacy work, I framed a lot of the work that I did through what Patricia Hill Collins, who is a Black feminist, references as outsider within. And so what that means is that even though Black and brown early educators are occupying spaces within the structure, they are excluded and treated as outsiders of the very system that they have helped to build and have helped to perpetuate or maintain for like hundreds of years. But she also says that it's really important for us to rely on the expertise, intellectual capital, and knowledge of Black and brown early educators because they have an intimate space within the system to where they see and experience racism, classism, and genderism. And so they can talk about it in ways that their peers cannot. So because they experience it, then they should be the people who we rely upon to develop policy initiatives across the state. Next slide, please. So the approach, again, that we took in Wisconsin, next slide, is to design the qualitative research approach. And I won't talk in detail about this because I did speak about it in last week's webinar, and then there will also be links to the Advancing Equity Executive Summary, so you can get more details there. What I do want to say is that we did also adopt a storytelling methodology where we relied on the experiences and intellectual capital of early educators in Wisconsin. And I also am very intentional about the work that I do, being a person of color, right? I did not want to design an approach to where I was conducting research on people, but I wanted to conduct research with people. And so that's why we formalized the Advancing Equity Steering Committee, which you'll hear about in a couple minutes. Next slide, please. This is demographic information. Again, this can be found in the executive summary. Next slide. And so here are the key findings that came out of the research. And again, it's very much mirrored or parallel to what I talked about in the experiences of Black and brown women historically. These individuals talking about living in poverty wages, working hard, laborious shifts, and not being compensated adequately, just like our ancestors. They talked about their racialized experiences with licensing agencies and how they just were not bringing in enough money into their programs to meet the criteria of these quality ratings systems that are imposed upon them without allowing them to help make decisions about the criteria. They want a seat at the table. They want to be a part of the policy development process. And they just talked about how living under this system of oppression had a negative impact on their mental health. Next slide, please. So now I take great pleasure in passing the baton to Bianca Hill. Again, I'm so honored to be in this space with Bianca. Bianca is a former student of mine at MATC. She is my colleague, and she has been serving as a co-researcher, helping me throughout this process over the last 2 years. So yes, so go ahead, Bianca.
Thank you, Dr. Adams. I don't need to introduce myself now, but I also am the executive director for Early Child Care Center in the Milwaukee area. So I'll get started right away and giving you some information about the role of the Advancing Equity and Steering Committee. So our role as the Advancing Equity Steering Committee is to dissect the research findings, and develop policy recommendation. Oh, wait, next slide, I'm sorry. Sorry, okay. Our role is as the Advancing Equity Steering Committee is to dissect the research findings, develop policy recommendations, and present the recommendations to Wisconsin's leaders such as Youngstar, WICA, DCF, the Department of Children and Families, and hopefully the registry soon. And also our state legislators and policymakers. Our mission is to center the voices, lived experience, and intellectual capital of Black and Brown early educators in Wisconsin to help promote public policy that reflects dignity, experience, well-being of Wisconsin's early educators, and advocate on behalf of the early education workforce, promoting equity in the workforce policies and practices. I'm sorry. Next slide, please. So this is a kind of what our committee is composed of. A majority of our committee is made up of women, Black, Hispanic, and Native American, well-educated women at that, with degrees ranging from associates to master's degrees. Collectively, our members have between 8 and 30 years of experience in the field. This is my 25th year working in the field, but actually it's more like 28 because I kind of started in high school and, did one of those summers programs. So about 28 years in the field. For me, next slide. Advocate, you can go to the next slide. Advocacy in action. Here's a couple of, we meet monthly, just for the record. We meet monthly to just meet and collect our thoughts, share data, information, come up with some of those policy recommendations that you'll hear about. And these are just some of the meetings and things because we meet virtually in a virtual space. So our committee has been actively advocating together for almost 2 years. We have taken time to get to know our legislators through frequent communications. We built positive and trusting relationships with some of our legislators, and they know our committee by name. We get called out a lot of the time, like, oh, you're on the Advancing Equity Steering Committee. Like, I love what you all are doing. You're all doing great work. And along with that, we took a 3-part training series with WICA's ECE engagement specialist, Latanya Johnson. And that's the middle section you see here. There we crafted our stories. We collaborated with families after we crafted our stories and talked about it collectively, we gathered feedback and kind of redeveloped our story so that it was fluid and everybody felt good about what we were saying. Some of the members on our committee, myself being one of them, additionally hosted events for the people in our community. So for me, at the center, I hosted a session for our families to craft their stories and to share with the people, the powers that be, their job leaders, the legislators, and people who, may not know really the impact that they have on childcare. As research participants and leaders, we work together. We've created a space, a safe space for leadership to become empowered and speak freely to create the changes that are needed to advance equity in the ECE profession. The committee has gotten stronger voices, stronger and more powerful, and we're making a huge impact in so many different areas, but most importantly, uplifting the voices of those who are working tirelessly to do this work and are paid and respected poorly. Next slide. I'm not sure what's happening. This is we connected with local early education workforce leaders, licensing Youngstar, as well as the WICA's board. In 2025, well, kind of the beginning of this year, we refocused and started providing and developing those policy recommendations for some of the leaders. And from the research findings that Dr. Adams mentioned earlier, we began actually researching and pivoting and taking the research findings and developing policies that work for, that are equitable for all of us. Thus far, we have made recommendations for the Department of Children and Families Licensing Bureau, as well as Youngstar, and WICA's food program, I believe, and the Teach Scholarship program, just to name a few. Next slide. Ruth kind of spoke about this earlier, but the Advancing Equity Steering Committee took on a major role in the 2025 Advocacy Day. It was a wonderful day for the early child care community to come together and like we share some of the same stories, but it was just a feel-good day for us to come together and elevate our voices and speak to the masses and sharing our stories and empathizing with one another and sharing our experiences. Next slide. Wait, I'm sorry. So we've connected with local legislators through several different avenues. We've attended several listening sessions with governor. We've visited the Capitol a few times to speak with different senators in our areas. And this photo that you see here is one of the listening sessions that we spoke at in 2024. And our most recent Advocacy Day, we spoke with Senator LaTanya Johnson, who was very pivotal in supporting us in becoming a part of the biannual budget. I think we can go to the next slide. Yes, okay, so you kind of heard me speaking in the video that was showed earlier. At this listening session, it was a majority of public school teachers. It was just a group of educators, and a majority of them were public school and private school teachers. And they were advocating for more funding for early intervention services, to have early intervention services put in place for the kids, special education services, and of course, more wages, additional wages for the teachers. When I got up to speak, they were all really taken aback when they found out that our state budget does not include funding for our youngest learners. I put into perspective that if early care was funded, the public schools, like the public schools were funded, we would be, or given any funding for that matter, the early intervention service that they were seeking support for, we would have taken care of that on our side while building the foundation before they get to primary school, and that problem would not exist for them. So I did, like in the video, like I was just saying how like you all are really speaking to a problem that doesn't have to be a problem and really isn't a problem. The problem is that we aren't funded, and if we were funded, we could support the school. So say it with me, early childcare needs to be a part of the state budget. We need an investment. So yeah, we would be able to have all those IEPs crafted and we'll put together so that when they get to school, it could be a lot easier for the teachers and the children. It's like they have to start over when they get there because of what, I mean, we can't provide services when we are operating from a negative. Next slide. This is another, this was a joint finance committee hearing that a lot of early professionals spoke at. It was a bit of an experience. I got there at 8:15 and signed in. I wasn't able to speak until 4. So that's just to kind of give you a picture of how long that day was to, let legislators hear the struggles that we are experiencing, and again, advocate for change, policy change, and funding for our state's youngest learners. This other photo is one of our committee members, Clara. I just to kind of go back to speak to how this steering committee has really empowered some of us and given us a much stronger voice and confidence to speak about the struggles that we are experiencing, where it's not always been easy for me personally. And I'm a talker. I'm a talker, but it in certain spaces folks don't make it comfortable for you to share your story. Number one, because they don't identify with it. They can be childcare providers, but Dr. Adams kind of spoke to it earlier, but when you're in a group of white women that are in the profession, their story does not align with ours all the time, most of the time. So this space has given me power to use my voice and not feel like I have to be mindful of the things that I say, though they are my experiences. Like they are what they are, and I should be able to share them freely. Next slide. This is these are more of our members. Kelly Melton, you kind of heard, saw the video about her hosting or leading a day without childcare. I want to say she's done that 2 years in a row now. Don't quote me, but she's pivotal in ensuring that as a family provider that their voices are heard. She speaks for the family providers, and unfortunately, due to the wages and not being able to afford to do what she loves, that's care for children and families in her home, because of the inequities, lack of funding, she had to close her doors, I want to say last year sometime, because she just couldn't afford to work in the early care field as well and take care of her family. This is also Clara. I think this is this year's A Day Without Childcare. She went to the Capitol again to speak. I love Claire so much. She's so soft-spoken, but since during this time of me knowing her, her voice has just gotten so much stronger, and she's really stepping out of the box and again, sharing her story on every platform. This last photo, I was invited to a radio station here in Milwaukee, Be the Voice Radio. It is still somewhere out there if you would like to listen. I was speaking again to the inequities in the early child care profession. I was informing the state, the world, that we're not doing well. I don't know what people are thinking, but we are not doing well. There is no state funding. We are operating out of a deficit every year. Profit or nonprofit is just not there. So giving them some information and helping them to advocate with us. Next slide.
Is it okay, based on the time parameters, is it okay if I join this space with you and just kind of
Speed us up.
Yeah, just so what I'll just say is I'll produce a report that has a lot of the information that Bianca is speaking to, and then I can share that report that'll give you all great details about the work that they have been doing. I love listening to Bianca. She's so passionate, but I also know that we have to respect the time of our viewers as well, and so we want to make sure that we close up. So actually, we can just jump all the way through the next couple slides, if that's okay with you, Bianca.
Absolutely.
We'll jump all the way through and allow Erin to come back on and close us out. Thank you so much. Thank you, Bianca.
No problem. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And, folks have been asking, will these resources and slides be sent out? Yes. It will be sent as well as a feedback survey. I just want to mention that. We encourage you to please open it up. It'll happen when you close your browser. Please answer the questions in the feedback survey about this webinar. I want to share with you contact information for the presenters today. A huge shout out to all of our presenters. And I also want to thank Build. They have hosted this 4-part webinar. There's been a number, four webinars in the series. And thank you to Build for your continued support. Also, a shout out to the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation. TA is being offered at no cost to you. So please feel free to reach out to the folks that are listed on the screen here. I also want to just mention, send a reminder to register for the Build conference. Many of the presenters will be at the Build conference. We'd love to connect with you, talk more, and talk through any of your questions and ideas. So with that, I want to thank you for your time today, and hopefully we'll see you at the Build conference. Thank you, everybody. Take care.